Welcome to Yeshiva Daf. We're holding today in Chulin Daf Ein Zayin. We're going to start where we ended yesterday, which is in Daf Ein Vav base, about 8 lines from the bottom. Omar Ula, Omar B'Yochanan. Oir Harehu Kibasa. Referring to, we learned that if you have a broken bone in that's sticking out, so then if it's broken bone and there's no flesh, that's called Aver HaMeduldo. This is called the limb which is disconnected, and it makes the whole thing puzzle. But if it is covered with flesh, we said roiv. Yesterday we ended the daf. If it's roiv hekef or roiv it's roiv oiviyoi. But if you have the roiv or you have a flesh covering it, so then the din is that what? It is so then there's no issue. Then it's okay. Then it's not a treif. So it doesn't have to be dafka meat. It could be skin. It doesn't have to be the flesh. It could be the skin. Skin covering is good enough. In Orish it says oru basar. So maybe you need both. Not that you can have either that or that. It needs to be, if you have a combination of meat and skin, you're fine. But skin only, who said? The way I read the Mishnah is either or. Meaning the skin and the meat together, joined together. Say no, you have to have a majority of basar. Not half and half. It could just be mashlim. I know a story that there was this bird. It was in the house of Yitzchak. It was skin and meat together, not majority. It was half and half. Says, okay. Don't bring a rye from a bird who's soft, the skin is soft, it can join more easily, so we don't have a rye from here. Okay. So look at the Gemara. There was this soft sinews or joints that came in front of Rabbi. And what does it mean? What we're talking about? These joints were covering, these soft joints were covering the bone. We learned you have to be flesh or skin. What about gidim? We learned that when you have gidim that are going to be hard eventually, but right now they're soft, so the thing is that one can become a member of Korban Pesach in order to eat that. In other words, it's considered to be a basar. In addition, I'm trying to save Am Yisrael losing money, so I'm combining that to my cheshbon. Well, probably the Rabbi Reb Shimon ben Lakish disagrees. He holds the gidim, even though they're soft now, they're not considered to be basar. V'isur deraisa. In addition, it's isur deraisa. You're like, what's the problem? Ishtik. So he didn't answer. We said the paskening like Rish Lakish only in three different places. And the rest of the place we don't pasken like Rish Lakish. So what's the big question from Rish Lakish? Shani Acho, the Rish Lakish, Yochanan himself changed his mind and agreed with Rish Lakish. Said, I learned that this Mishnah is a Das Yochid. And what's the Mishnah talking about it? We already mentioned a little bit before, but we're referring to the fact that things that are soft and they're going to be hard eventually, but now they're soft, do you treat them to be as meat or not? That's a discussion that we have in the Gemara L'Kamon. And he says the Shittas Yochid that says that something which is soft now is considered to be basar, but the Rabbanan disagree. So in our case, a broken bone that's sticked out and it's covered with the majority of flesh. A piece of it got cut off. Also, so he went to Abaye, and what was the suffix? He said, listen, when you have a bone that's sticking out, it's covered with flesh, it's okay, as long as nothing was removed from it. But if you have a piece removed from it, maybe not. Shayet losa regalim. So you ate 3 regalim, as we saw earlier, that shleisha regalim means, because they used to come and meet each other once a regal, even after Chulin Beis Hamikdash, the Rabbanim used to have a convention every regal. So for 3 regalim, they couldn't come to an answer. So he told him to go to Rova, his knife is very sharp. In other words, he knows and answers questions easily. Also, so the Mishnah says one requirement. As long as it's outside and it's covered with flesh, you're good. So the fact that one piece is falling out doesn't change that thing. And they're going to ask a few scenarios that we see many times in Shas, many times in Chulin. We said that you have to have flesh covering the majority. So Amalei, Rabbi Rava, what happened in the flesh is a mislakid mal. Mislakid means you don't have one piece of flesh covering the roiv, but you have different pieces. Together they're joined to be roiv, but they're not together as one. That's question number 1. Misroisis mal. What about misroisis? What is misroisis? Misroisis is that it's very thin, the meat. You only a thin layer. Mismasis mal. So I mean it's getting rot in the meat. We saw that earlier when we spoke about a reyo. When he comes to a doctor, he removes it. In other words, it's considered to be dead meat. Is that good enough or not? You have enough flesh, but there's a hole in it. Niklaf mal. You have enough flesh, but it's peeled. And there's only a top part that's the around the bone. It's peeled. Only above it, it's over. It's there. Nizdigma. What about if you have a crack in it? Nita shtisha tachter now. What happens? So the niklamans, it's not considered attached to the basar. The nitla shtisha tachter means that there's a third of the thickness that was removed. Now, we learned that skin is good enough. The hide. So l'chura, that's not attached to the basar because you miss. The Gemara understands it means you're missing the meat below. So if so, you have space in between. Deal with the kono the mashcha day. The kono he koin kinyan mashcha day, meaning we're talking about that the skin is attached to the bone. Or I should say there's a certain area on the leg where there's no meat over there we saw yesterday, and the skin is attached to the bone. So, but it could be this space, maybe not. What does it mean? So you have a circular hole around the bone. You're missing meat around the bone in a circle. Around it there is more meat, but you have that size of a coin around it, which is not. So it's never going to connect to the bone. Not connect to the bone. In other words, what they do is, if you go and you take a bone, any bone, and you scratch it, so it takes, blood comes out and it connects. So meaning when it's alive. Well, the first question was, it's too far. There's a space in between. There's like a whole circle around it. So no, if you're gonna make a scratch, it's gonna spread and connect. That's what the doctors do if you need to. So therefore, it's not a problem. So when it's alive, you take a bone, you make a little scratch, there's blood, and it spreads the flesh. Ava paizol, don't use steel for it. Mizozor, it causes rust. It makes cracks in it. So we see that already the bone, we start saying there's already something connected to the bone. There's some flesh connected to the bone. So you say, even though most of it is away, make a scratch, it's going to come and connect. But if it's completely exposed, then you don't say that. Okay, so that was the dinning that we saw regarding the konim, regarding the bone, and what happens when you need to have some flesh around it. So look at the Mishnah. Now we're moving. We spoke till now in the parak. Someone who shechts an animal and he finds a shalil. A shalil is a fetus. Now we're turning around to a shilya. A shilya is the sack where the fetus is sitting in. So a sheichet is a beimo umotza b'shilya. He finds a sack where the fetus is He doesn't see the fetus. And we'll see in a moment. He wants to speak of what happened to the fetus. But nefesh hayofa tochlenu. Nefesh hayofa means not an istinis. So not an istinis, you can eat this, the sholil, the shilio. And it's okay, but someone who istinis will get disgusted by eating the sack.
What does that mean?
It's kosher. But he's saying if someone's istinis, someone is not going to want to eat it, and if he's not allowed to eat it, because he's not allowed to do something which is most. Someone's not allowed to eat something which is disgusting.
So someone else can eat it.
Yeah. It's not considered to be food. It doesn't have tumas oichlin. Doesn't get tumah the food gets. It tumas nevelos. Doesn't have a din of nevelo either because only food becomes nevelo. Once he had in mind to make it into food, want to eat it, I was still learning tumas nevelos. Tumas nevelos has to do with that it is a meat. If it's not, it's not. Continues the more. So you have the sack sticking out. Asur b'achilo. Now like why? Simon vlad be'isho, simon vlad be'behin. Which means the same way by isho, a simon of a vlad is a shilyo. The sack is a simon of a vlad. Why? Because maybe in that area you have the head of the fetus. Maybe the head of the fetus is in that space. So if you have the head of the fetus, so then it becomes usher. Also by isho, the same thing. If I have a shilyo by isho, it's a simon vlad, and I'm choshish for a bchor or for a baby, depends on the tumas leido. We have a problem here. So it's the same simon that when you have a sack, you choshish, maybe the head is over there, and there's a leido. You have the animals giving birth to the firstborn, question has dushas bchor, and you have a shilyo coming out, which is the sack. You can throw it away as no kedusha. Why not? Because the Roiv tells you that it's not a bchor. We'll see in the Gemara why not. Even if there is a fetus, it's not a bchor. It's not a kosher bchor. But if it's kachim, not bchor, tikover. Because then for sure it is kosher. It is kodesh. Because the reason why it's not a bchor is because maybe a female. But a kodesh could be a female too, if it was born from a kodesh. You don't bury it in a Pashas Drochim, which is a intersection that gives it a siman toiv that it will have no miscarriage going forward. You also don't hang it on a tree and really good siman. It's not carrying that they do, different simonim to say that things will be okay. How do we know that you can eat the shilya to add the sack? So what happens if it's stuck out? Only the animal, not the shilya. We need a pasuk. It's a svara. The shilya has a vlad, so you choshish, there's a birth, you can't eat it. So he says, what? Yes, it says more cross lachta b'almo. It's a cross lachta b'almo, and therefore you need shchit over there. You can't eat the really you don't need a pasuk for that. It's just a svara b'almo. Okay, says the Gemara. If you have a skin of a donkey that you cooked very much, now became soft and edible, what's it? Something will the what's the kamino? Either tumas oichli. You want to question: does it get tumas oichli or not? Tanino. We finished speak about it. Either tumas nevelos also tanino. What is it? Tumas oichlin netanyo or the skin. Vashilyo the sack. Ain't a time tumas oichlin. You don't get tumas oichlin because it's not food. But sheshoko, even if he cooked it a lot, vashilyo shechishavaleo. Once he has in mind, like we saw in the Mishnah, the time tumas oichlin. So tumas oichlin we learned that you can create, make into food. Tumas nevelos nami tanino b'nivlo. So it says a favorish only a nevelo. Tumas nevelos a nevelo only, but carcass only. The loy be'or, not the skin, loy batzor, not the bones, loy begin, not the sinews, loy kanai, not the horns, loy tlafai, not the hooves. So you see clearly there's no tumor. Why should it be, what's the chiddush? Even if you're using for the geder, so in the geder you need to put some soft meat to swallow the dirt because part of the geder. He's still not considered to be a nevela. So we said clearly that it has tubas oichli and not tubas nevela. He said, no, really, to was Hi, we said once he thought about it, becomes food. I would think that's skin of all the animals. But a donkey, no one wants to eat a donkey. So that it doesn't have a din of food. Chiddush is, it does have a din of food, ligabe to masoich. Same with shil shiyatzto ma'ablazo l'shonu l'she'ein v'lod in imo v'lod. Meaning, the shili comes out, and there is no fetus. So I'm choishish that maybe the fetus is in the part that came out. If there is a vlad, ain't choshim l'vlad acher, then you're not choshish. Bein imo vlad. Bein yeshim vlad, choshim l'vlad acher. No, Yechezkel says you are choshish. Even if there's a vlad, maybe there's another vlad, maybe it's twins, maybe that's a different vlad. So Yechezkel is more mach. Same way, any v'alma of Yirmel l'chum v'alma Abelazar, Abelazar is the one who's mach, not Yechezkel. So according to our Gisa, it's clear not like that. You have to change the Gisa. It's only if the shilya is not tied to a fetus. You find a fetus in the womb, not tied to this sac. If it's tied to it, you know that's the vlad. Meaning, Rabbi Yochanan says, I'm more makel. If there's any baby, if any fetus in the womb, I'm not chosh to any other fetus. It doesn't have to be tied to it. So Abelazar is more machmer. So according to Abelazar, if you find a shilya, find a sac, and you find a vlad, which is not, you find a fetus, which is not tied to the sac, I'm not going to say that the fetus belongs to the sac. I'm still going to chosh for the sac to have a fetus in it. But if it's tied to it, then you're not choshish. So what Tani can say that Abelazar being a Bryce this way, like Abelazar, a person mean behemo chayo ve'oif v'shil yimoim. So a woman had a miscarriage or came out looks like an animal, and you have a shilya the sack. If it's tied to it, why? Because I'm assuming this bag, the sack, had this blood. And if it's not tied to it, I'm quite the market that maybe there's two babies over here. Meaning I'm quite maybe there was two babies over here. Maybe the shafir means the fetus, got dissolved. If there's two babies, where's the other baby? So maybe this shilya, this sack, had a shafir and it had a membrane, but it had something in it, and it was dissolved. And this fetus had a sack that got dissolved. So I have a fetus and I have a bag, but really the bag has another baby. And if Kamina is, Rashi says, one of the go of in the chumrah, you don't give her yemei toyar. Because yemei toyar that you get for when a woman gives birth is when you have a regular baby. This is not a regular baby. So you're saying maybe there was a baby. So you mach me to give her yemei tumo, but now yemei taharo. Because here's the Gemara of Vaker Shepilo, that if she had a miscarriage, so you're saying the shilya is not, you don't have kedusha, you could just throw it away. Why there's no kedusha? So says the Gemara, where the lashon of the Mishnah was, yishtechem laklav, gives to the dogs. My time. Most animals, when they give birth to a male, usually it's going to be kodesh b'chayil. But there are some babies, some fetuses that come out that are not kodesh b'chayil. What will be the din? Mind you, which one the case is it? Nidmo. Nidmo means it's similar that to a different animal. You have a sheep that gives birth to something that looks like a goat. In that case, it's called nidmo. It's not kodesh. Okay? So first of all, when you have a baby, is it roy to be a b'chor or not? Majority, yes. The chola yoldos, but in general, whoever gives birth, yoldos mechtzas chor mechtzas kevis. It's always 50-50. 50% male, 50% female. So I have over here a 50% that said maybe it's a female. Take the minority of the ones who are not roy to b'chor and add it to the half which is the kevois. So in total pool, how many are kosher l'bchayru? Less than 50%. Why? Because 50% are female. And the other 50%, some of them are not really l'bchayro. So I have less than 50%, so it's a mute. That's why when the sack comes out, I'm assuming it doesn't have a din b'chayro, and you give it to the dogs. But if it's a be'em mukdash who had a sack coming out, so then you have to bury it. My time, the majority is kaddish. It's either a male or a female is kaddish, and majority has din kedusha is not considered to be not kaddish. Okay. The Mishnah ended by saying, not to do with Zdar Moiri. Zdar Moiri is either to put it in a crossroads or to hang it on a tree. Abaye v'rov adamet havayu kol dover sheyesh bo refuah ein bo mishum dar moiri. Anything which is for medicine purposes, there's no dar refuah. Ein bo refuah yesh bo mishum dar moiri. So if there's no refuah, so then there's dar moiri. So Rashi says anything that's done for sicknesses. In our case, anything you do for sickness, it's a lachash, it's some kind of a kameya, you do to heal people from their sickness. The din is, it's not dark anymore. But if you're doing something which is not to heal, like you're putting in Pasha's drochim, it's not a way to heal sickness, it is dark anymore. There's other Rishonim a little differently. It was a proven medicine, not proven medicine. Okay. Says the Gemara, V'atanya ilon shemei shepir. So if you have a tree that he's losing its fruits, the fruits are, he's shedding his fruits. Soikor b'sikro, he paints it with a sikro, which is a red color. V'toyanu be'avonim, and he puts on it rocks to weights the rock to be heavy, like it hangs from the tree. So Bishop talking about avonim, I understand that's a refuah. Why? Ki eichid, the Gemara says Davayin Chesam Udalef, in order to make the tree weak, right? So Rashi explains when the tree, so to speak, is fat, so the fruits fall from it. But if the tree is not fat, you have to take away a little bit of its energy in order to keep the fruits. Why you put a red color in it? Because that's not a refuah. How can you do that? It says no. There the reason is people should see it and daven for it. As you saw the Brayso, the Tome Yikro, the Mitzayro, when he goes out, the Chutz HaMachne, he has to scream out, Tome Ama Tome. Why? To tell people that he is a Mitzayro. He has, if people should come and down for him. Anytime somebody happened to him something, doesn't say what. Pasha means over anything. So he says, so he has to announce it so people should down for him. According to who we put on a palm tree, we put a kufso, which is dates, and that's a simon that it's losing the fruits. This time that says he do it in order for people to be mivakish rachim. So one more says whenever, and that's what comes. That's the Rishonim also learn from the Nikudo. This is or is that more Shabbos? The idea is that when you have something which is beneficial, it's not dark karimori. So if you know that it heals, not karimori, it's done for a purpose of people to daven for it, not dark karimori. If you're doing just like a sign, this is some kind of a omen, then it's dark karimori, and that's our Mishnah says not to do it. It doesn't have a healing purpose. But if not, you could do it because then it has a healing purpose. And the idea is when a person has a tsar, tell it to others should come and down for him. That's one of the drushes the one says, Al daigo belavish yesicheno. So one says yesicheno, really yesicheno midaigo, take away from your mind, or yesicheno la'achim. Tell others your worries. People may help, give you tefillah. That's what it is. So with this, we end the fourth parak of Maseches Chulin. How do you look be'im ha'maksho? How do you look be'im ha'maksho be'ezer Hashem?